paintings show the absence of a person and icons show the presence of a person, right? To be able to witness, to be able to see the life of a saint come to life when we look at that icon, and through our chants and through our intercessions with the saints, right? Our veneration with the saints, to be able to feel their presence within our lives is a huge blessing. That's why a lot of people, after they do an icon, they never sign an icon. Why? Because it's written by God. It's the icon written without hands.
I made this joke already, but kind of looks like Jesus is giving us the rock eyebrows. You know, like you smell what the rock is cooking. You know, so
All right.
It's amazing how much story they can capture right within one. And like you said, like that's why you like it so much, right? There's so much more in depth.
All right, amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
as it was in
was in the
beginning,
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 and
and
now,
now,
and
and shall be,
world without
Amen.
end.
world without end. Amen.
Alrighty, 3, 2, 1, action. Alrighty, hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us on another episode of Tea with Thomas. And before we go into the episode, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share the videos with your friends and family. Today, we'll be going into an exciting episode on icons, and to talk to us about them, we have our fellow hosts, Aaron and Kaysen, as well as a modern day Renaissance man. He's a basketball player, he's a singer, a dancer, and very importantly, a writer of icons. Joshua Mathew, welcome, brother.
Thank you guys for having
Welcome,
me
man.
again. Thank you so
Ooh,
much.
welcome.
Thank you.
Of course.
Go ahead, man. Could you give us a little introduction? Can you tell the people who you are?
Yeah, of course. As you know, as you said, my name is Joshua Mathew. I go to St. Thomas Under Orthodox Church, Philadelphia, and I go to school at Drexel University. I'm majoring in biomedical engineering. Let's go Dragons, right?
Yeah.
And with that, other than that, like usually, as you said, some of my hobbies, I also love woodworking, stuff like that. Just anything hands-on, creativity wise, right? And just love being outdoors, right? I hate being like cooped up in a room and stuff like that. So I love being as active as I can. So that's like,
Nice.
and obviously going to church. Love going to church.
Mhm.
Hey,
Involved in all
that's a good hobby to have, going to church. Go, Kaysen.
Yeah, Joshua. I mean, again, thank you for coming in. Yeah, I remember when Jarek, like first introduced you to us. It was just amazing to see someone of like our generation, working in this space, especially in iconography. And so we really wanted to ask you, like, starting from the beginning, right? Of course, people might have different perspectives and things like that on iconography, but we want to ask you specifically, in your current work as an iconographer, right? What got you started in this space, right? What got you interested? What got you drawn into, icons in general?
Of course, yeah, I'd love to be able to share a little bit into that. So I was probably a couple years back, right before I did iconography. I was a avid like art type of person. So like I love creativity, I love painting, I love drawing, I love coloring, right? All types of media, right? And with that came, compliments, stuff like that. That was always nice, but it's like I always felt like I could do more with it, right? And I was also going through some personal struggles, within my faith, as we know, like different sayings like Sunday Christians and things like that, like not being able to truly dive into your faith, right? To truly give up everything and go with the Lord, right? And so to be able to use a talent that Christ gave me and to be able to walk with it, right? And to be able to use that in a way to glorify him was a great opportunity for me. Once I went to a couple camps and things like that where iconography was truly taught, right? And I know it's like been blooming these past couple of years, right? The talk of iconography, what it is, how it is done, right? And things like that. So that made me interested and I went into more detail and stuff like that. And eventually, funny as it is, for Christmas, I had my Achin Sujitachin as a Secret Santa. And so the only gift I could think of to give an Achin, even after asking Kochima, was try and use my skills to paint an icon, right? And to at least try. That was my first ever attempt. And that was a St. John the Baptist. And a lot of personal research went into it, as well as tutorial videos and watching other great artists, great iconographers write their icon, right? And to be able to see the techniques they use, even though I didn't have the right materials or anything like that, I was able to replicate it in some sort of way to the best of my abilities. And that opened up a whole new avenue, right? Leading to my Vikar Achin, Kurekos Achin, and then doing other works for other people who request and ask me to do it, and I'm willing to do it all the time. Yeah.
Awesome.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think I want to ask you a quick question before we
Yeah.
move on to another question. You had talked specifically where you mentioned that you were writing icons. So that's very interesting to me because I thought icons meant that you were drawing them, right?
Yeah.
This is art, right? So could you kind of explain what you mean by writing icons?
Of course, yeah. So the reason we say writing icons, and this was new to me as well, right? I was in the same position you were because I always thought, okay, these are paintings in our church, right? They look nice.
Mm.
That's all, right? It's a 2D thing. But that's the lack of information that we have, right? That's the lack of knowledge we have on these different spaces. So going into iconography, and learning about it and doing my own personal research, I learned writing is because we are writing the story of the saint, right? That icon is a glimpse into their life as well as a glimpse into the heavens, right? And so to be able to see the way the saint lived and to be able to understand the sacrifices and the troubles and tribulations that they had, right? That's a huge thing for us to help us and guide us in our faith. And that's why painting is a 2D thing, right? We always know it's 2D, but iconography is writing because it's writing the story of the saint. I'd like to take a real quick second and just quote one of the fathers that I researched on, right? Dr. Paulos Margregorius, the great theologian, he says it best since paintings show the absence of a person and icons show the presence of a person, right? To be able to witness, to be able to see the life of a saint come to life when we look at that icon and through our chants and through our intercessions with the saints, right? Our veneration with the saints, to be able to feel their presence within our lives is a huge blessing that we have. That's what the difference is between writing and seeing a painting, right?
Yeah, and I think call it God's providence. Like today, I was just scrolling Twitter and I happened to come on a video with a Protestant walking into an Orthodox church, and the priest there, he was explaining what the difference is, and he was saying exactly what you were saying. This is a glimpse into heaven, right? This is um, it is biblical, right? We're seeing a part of God in that image, not the person, but in that image, there is the sense of heavenliness in there. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're writing theology. That's
Yeah.
what that's what I have understood from icons. You're not writing. You're not drawing anything. You're not drawing. It's not an image to just look at, but it represents. It's a holy door, right? It's a divine reality that you're looking into, right? And beauty is a great way of peering into
Yeah.
that holy door, right? That's why God gave us our eyes, so for us to look at things, but adore things,
Yeah.
to see the beauty in things, because it's a transcendental concept, right? Beauty is a transcendental concept. So yeah. But anyways, I wanted to say I'm very impressed. I've seen some of your work, by the way.
Thank you.
You're very young, and you got into iconography. And one thing I wanted to say before that, we all have a similar experience in terms of the wishy-washy Christian life, right? The life where like, oh, you just go to Sunday mass or divine liturgy,
Exactly.
and you experience you partake in the communion, but you don't really understand what you're really partaking in, right? And going from that to iconography, that's a big jump. But it's amazing that you chose that, because iconography is not easy. First of all, there's a talent that God gives, but how you choose to run with it, that's another thing too. You're glorifying his name and for his greater glory of his kingdom on earth. And I'm very, very impressed with what you're doing. And you're so young, and you're able to do that and inspire a lot of people. And because of this episode, now you've inspired me to do my research into iconography, and I fell into a deeper devotion to understanding why icons are a hallmark of our faith too.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge part of our faith, although there are conflicts and there's contrary arguments against it. We have good rebuttals and understanding of icons.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very, very impressed by that, bro. So
Thank
you said, okay, you've understood what icons are. You took some classes. I just want to know a little bit about those courses and training you got, because iconography, you cannot just pick that up overnight, right?
Yeah.
It's a process that requires patience. It requires understanding of what you're trying to write, right?
Mhm.
So how did you start delving into that deeply, and how do those coursework and training really help you dive in?
Of course, yeah. So actually, so but the first icon that I painted, it was a lot more like YouTube videos of watching people paint, right? The
Mm,
problem with that is obviously you don't know the way they do things. You don't know how like powerful they put the brush on the paint on the
mm,
canvas. You don't know the materials they use because it's not like they're explicitly giving a tutorial, right? It's
right.
more of they're showing you their process, right? And so it took me a lot more effort to like go into detail, like how did they get the paint? How did they get the specific like the pigment, right? How do they do this mix? How do they do what is the base for their paint, right? Different questions like that. And
Mm,
so a great resource that I had was Chechi from my church gave me her account to this website called UK Coptic Icons. And so being able to obviously look at Coptic icons is a little different, right? It's a little different of a style, but to understand it's the same concept of the paint, like the painting process. So to be able to go through those tutorials and to take it step by step, them explaining the importance of each step and things like that was very helpful, very supportive. And to give more insight, there are other courses you can take, obviously. There are in-person courses at the different seminaries, right, that are here, as well as different pop-ups where usually it's like Greek like iconographers that come to the US to have their exhibitions and shows, and not shows but like teaching exhibitions. And to be able to attend that would be a great thing that I want to do in this summer coming up. That's a great opportunity that hopefully I could get. But there are also loads of other resources, such as Writing the Light is a huge page on Instagram and YouTube that show the full process, as well as Georges, I might be saying his name wrong, but Georges Cordis, one of the greatest iconographers of our day and age, right? He's done countless churches, countless pieces. I think he does like 5 pieces a day. I could barely do one piece in 3-4 weeks, right? So like this is just second nature to him. Yeah, it's awesome resources. And there's also someone in our church called Rijo Givargi Sachin, and he's a famous Achin for iconography back in India, and the way he does it, the style he does it, and just overall bringing that theology aspect, like you said, Kason, it's like theology in colors, right? That's what we are seeing in an icon. So it was great. Those are like my main resources that I have. I would love to also attend like classes in the future, things like that, to get more consistent, but to be able to get those, to be able to start rough and see my progress was a great aspect for me and helped me propel a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we wanted to ask you was like, how do you feel about this going into the future, right? But it looks like you're very passionate about it, and we're excited to see what the fruits of your labor will be, right? So going more into the icons itself, right, and trying
Mhm.
to understand the history, right? So we want to ask, what is the importance of icons in history? Like, if you could kind of, we know some struggles, right? Iconoclasm and things like that. So if you could go a little bit into it about like with the
The history.
struggles, yeah, the struggles in the early church with icons, things like that, things you've learned in the process
Yeah,
of
of course.
painting or writing.
Um, just like you said, obviously there's a lot of struggles, right, with the iconoclasm and all that things. But before that, like the way I needed to learn into iconography was understand where did it come from, right? Where was the original and where was the start? And so there's obviously many stories, many different paths that you can take depending on what you guys believe. But there are two that stand out: the Veil of Veronica, right? We know is the towel of Christ's face, as well as otherwise known as the Mandelion icon, right? That's what the Orthodox Church sees it as, right? And so it's both the same icons, just different basis behind it. And so I could give an insight to one of them, right? And so I have an example actually. So this book I'm reading, The Desert Fathers, this was one of the early icons of Christ, so found in the 6th century found in the 1900s, but dates back to the 6th century,
Wow.
right? And it's a Coptic icon of Abbot Mena and Jesus Christ, one of the early Coptic monks, right? And so being able to see these examples back then, right, all the way back in that time period, and to find them nowadays just speaks volumes, right, to how impactful they are and how like they're resistant to time, right? It's like no matter how much time goes by, icons keep our faith running, right? They show that life of the saint, just as you all said before. And so I guess I could go a little bit into the story of the Mandelion if you don't mind.
Yes, please,
Yeah, of
absolutely.
course. Awesome. So, doing a lot of research on it, the original icon, as I said before, is a towel of it's a towel with Christ's face on it, right? And so the background behind it was in the 4th century in Edessa, there was a king called King Abkar, right? And King Abkar one day got really, really sick, right? To the point where he didn't think he was going to make it, and neither did his servants, nor the people around him, nor his family. And so he knew of Christ. He was a believer, right? And he knew that the only way that he would probably be able to overcome this, or even before he died, to be able to see the essence of Christ. That was his goal. That was his only like option left, right? And so he actually had a ambassador named Hannah. Hannah was the emperor's ambassador as well as an artist, right? And so King Abkar sent Hannah to with the letter to be able to go find Christ and try and bring Christ back to Edessa to be able to visit him and to see him, right? And so with this journey came Hannah meeting Christ. And so when Hannah met Christ, Christ knew that it was a time of his passion, right? it was coming near to the end of his life, right? And so he knew he couldn't make it to Edessa, but he promised that he would send one of his disciples, and that disciple eventually ended up being, all our patron saints, Saint Thomas, right? Saint Thomas the Apostle, and that's why his remains are said to be buried in Edessa at the end of the day, right? And so, moving on from that, so when Hannah was able to see Christ and heard this response, she knew that he knew that he couldn't leave without some type of depiction, because he really wanted King Abkar, so someone who was close to him, to be able to be healed as much as he can. And so he used his artistic skills and to try to depict the portrait of Christ's face, right? And when doing this, he knew that it was impossible. He could not do it. And so Christ saw this, and what he did is he took the towel, he washed his face, and he imprinted his face onto the towel, right? After washing it. And so that is why we recognize this as the icon painted without hands, right? In the same story as the Veil of Veronica, I could go in a little bit. It's just Veronica was seeing Christ before he went to get crucified on the cross, right? And on his walk there, she saw that he was near her, and so she handed her a towel to Christ to be able to wipe his face, right? And when Christ wiped his face, that's when the depiction came. So both aspects are the towel being able to depict the icon, but going back to the other story, and so once that towel was brought back by Hannah, King Abkar was said to be fully healed as he was able to see that essence of Christ, right? Just like we all said, we see icons as written without hands, right? They're the work of God working through me, working through any other person that's trying to do it or does it for a living, right? And so to be able to see his essence that he willingly gave us, right? Just like how God willingly sent his son down, is a huge example and a huge showing of who he is and how he loves us, right? At the end of the day, and King Abkar was able to be healed, and eventually, in both stories, the icon that was first created by Christ was lost, due to time and due to many wars and churches and things like that. So that's basically the two little background historical aspects and excerpts that I did a lot of research on.
Yeah.
This is very good. This is importance of sacred tradition, right? So
Yeah.
some of these stories get passed down, and we can have that to understand. Oh, these stories do exist. There may be truths in that too, because I never heard of it until now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
this is awesome.
Like,
So
one thing, like I think I've heard a very similar story with Saint Jude. I wish I did a little bit more research on it because I could have it's very similar. I believe it also has the king of Edessa, but I'm not sure.
The reason why St. Jude was also included, because under St. Thomas was St. Jude, right? Like that was one of his apostles. So St. Thomas actually sent St. Jude, or in like my notes, it's Thaddeus, right? So he sent him to Edessa, and that's how there's writings of St. Jude. There's writings of Addai is another name that he's referred to as, right? And so through those writings, we see these different stories and stuff like that. So
okay,
it's all connected. Yeah, definitely.
But I also want to talk something about, you talked about icons, the Veil of Veronica, but I want to go a little bit back in time a little bit to the incarnation. That is because Christ is the icon of the Father, right? So him taking the flesh is truly the moment where the economy in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, I probably could cite this a little bit, but we couldn't comprehensively understand how to even depict God, right? Before the incarnation, because God was incomprehensible, he was invisible. That was the term that the Catechism uses. He's invisible. He has not taken flesh. But we see him coming to the burning bush and all that. But the Jewish traditions were very careful of depicting that. So, but once Christ took flesh, he could be seen, he could be heard, he could be hugged, right? He became flesh and dwelt among us, right? As John says in this first chapter. And the incarnation ushers in the economy of images, right? It brings forth, and I think Saint Basil and Saint Damascus, they also the Catechism is actually taken from that, right? From the works of Saint John of Damascus and Saint Basil. And yeah, because of Christ's incarnation, because of his love for us, right? He became flesh, and the images started to form, because now you could depict God, right? Because God made flesh. So I think that's something that we really should understand before we move into talking about icons, because all of the honor that when we revere or venerate an icon, right? The honor passes to the prototype, right? If we have an image of a saint or an icon of a saint, right? We venerate that. We ask prayers, right, to the saint, which the saint, it passes through the wood and paint, right? To that divine reality, to the holy door, which then is also passes through to the prototype, which is the creator of all things,
Right.
Jesus Christ, right? So that's I love the wordings, even the semantics of it is very nice, because wow, the prayers can travel in that special medium to our Lord, right? And it's just done in color and it's done in beauty. I love that sort of explanation.
Just like
Yeah.
going off you a little bit, I just read something, I guess actually the past week. It was this orthodoxy book that I was reading, and within
Mhm,
it actually said, just like you said, how you found that in St. John, right? And
mhm,
the Gospels, when we see like a book, there used to be like just books of the Gospels, right? And usually
mhm.
on that book you see an icon of Christ, right? Why? Because just like you said, these Gospels are the life of Christ, right? That is the
Right.
living icon, like you said,
Yeah.
as he's the incarnation of God the Word, right? We see that Christ is the icon of our lives, right? He
Right.
is our example to live by, and the special part is icons are written in gold. The Gospels are written in ink, right? And so
Ink.
like they're both an icon, just in different ways.
It's different ways, right? Just like flesh is an icon of Christ is an icon of the Father, right? Right. Yeah.
So, so so I wanted to expand on this, right? So with our veneration towards the icons, there comes
Mhm.
the accusations of idol worship, right? Um, First commandment, right? We're often accused of going against it, right? And we've had a long history of iconoclasm and things like that. So, Kesa, can you kind of give us a little introduction to iconoclasm and maybe even refute it a little? Okay.
Oh, I'm not a theologian here. I'm not an apologist here, but
Who was there at the
I
council?
definitely could say the first commandment is something that is so misinterpreted. When I was going through my Bible in a year, when I encountered Exodus chapter 20, it's usually when I stop. I'm like, okay, I got to read this a little carefully again before I move on a little further, because it's commonly, especially in the Protestant Reformation, it was also being brought back. But before that, we would love to like address this. The first commandment is not a prohibition against like imagery at all. I mean, it's prohibition against idolatry, right? That's thou shalt not have any other gods before me, and thou shalt not bow down to it. Because why? Like if you literally read about 5 chapters after that, you have the establishment of the Ark of the Covenant, which has the cherubims over the mercy seat, right? Like bending over to that. It's just amazing, because if that first commandment is not referring to the right thing that you're interpreting it to be, it could mean that you can't depict a cherubim. But Moses was literally made cherubims out of gold, constructed and put that over the mercy seat. So God's presence can hover over that, right?
Yeah.
So it's clearly not a prohibition against that. Even in Numbers chapter 21, it talks about the Moses erecting the bronze serpent, so that people could be healed, right? And the Amshavadi of the pilav that we have is a representation of that, right?
Right.
It is a representation of that imagery that we have. So God is not definitely saying, and of course there's a tradition that I can't refer to this exactly, but uh, Israelites, they did have images to pass on, like in oral tradition is something, right? They had imagery to pass on to people as well. It's not as formalized per se, because they were also always moving and moving and moving into the promised land, right? But that the imagery, like small pamphlets and all that stuff, were used, not in our sense of the word, but in their sense of time. But it's clear that it's not a prohibition against religious imagery, but it's a prohibition against idolatry. That's clear. So what happened was in even in the catacombs, right? There was imagery of the apostles, Saint Paul and Saint Peter was one of the earliest ones. Then we also have images of other saints and all that. But over time, that this developed, and people started to have schools of thoughts of this, and it started developing. Doesn't mean the icons were a new thing that formed. It was just a developing process, like the formalization. Until it got to closer to the 6th and 7th century, we had the rise of Islam, right? The rise of Islam, and during that time, they were contrary to any sort of imagery,
Right.
and therefore, a lot of these emperors, like say Emperor Leo and Constantine the Fifth, I think Leo's son is Constantine the Fifth. They had an immediate repulsion against the icons, and they thought, because how can you contain the Almighty God to wood and ink, right? Because then we can ask ourselves to our Lord, how can God contain Himself in flesh, right? Like, how can that be possible? So, but as I said, the incarnation ushers in the economy of images, right? Because Christ is the icon of the Father, God, right? So there was this big dispute that went on. So iconoclast is to break images, right? So they started going into places, going into even Hagia Sophia. There was a time where certain phrasings were destroyed and all that, and certain images and defaced images, and it just became a mess where there was a lot of infighting, physical fighting, and this amazing artwork that was destroyed during this time. But thanks be to God, thanks to the Holy Spirit. And of course, there was times where, before I talk about the help of the Holy Spirit, there was a lot of sort of discussions that formed around there was a council that was held that did not have the right amount of representatives of the Eastern and Western churches at the time, the Byzantine side and the Western side. So it kind of became to a point where there was kind of a decision that's been made by certain people that was not representative of Christendom. But thanks to Empress Irene, that we got a commissioning of what do you call it? The summoning of the Second Council of Nicaea, right? Where they're like, okay, we have had enough of this problem. We gotta figure this out. Is this really the problem? Like, is iconoclasm is it the right argument? But drawing from the works of Saint John Damascus, Saint Basil, it's clear that the incarnation does usher in the economy of images. It's not, you're not containing God. You're just representing the visible nature of God, right? So unfortunately, fortunately, in that council, solidified, and we had both representative churches approving of the decision, and therefore accepted across Christendom, and kind of was crushed during that time. So that was the first wave. In the second wave, we kind of had all this kind of rising again, where I think Leo V was revived this iconoclasm again. But again, Saint Empress Theodora and Methodius, they once again ushered back. Hey, we had Council of Constantinople also talk about it too. Second Council of Nicaea also talk about it. They silenced that fire pretty easily. Then, thankfully, over time, that kind of became the theme until it kind of was brought up again in the Catholic sphere when the Protestant Reformation happened. So it's a long history. I just gave what I've learned in a very brief time. There's so many details, so many things that I probably have missed, but that's just a basic rundown of the issues that iconoclasm brought to Christendom, and how by the power of the Holy Spirit it was pushed down and said, no, that's not working here. So
yeah, I think it's kind of important to note, like, especially when you're talking about like what iconoclasts, what they believed in, and how the methods in which they like move forward as well. I think it's kind of important for our listeners to kind of understand, exactly what does it mean when we talk about like icons, right? What do the Catholic Church and also the Orthodox Church, right? The Eastern churches especially, we have this special importance to icons, or we hold a special importance to icons. But what does it mean when we say, like, we look at icons? Like, what is the relationship between us and icons themselves, right? Because like you talked about, the fear was that icons were seen as something that we worship, right? And that is not the case, because icons are seen as something we venerate, right? And so there is a veneration. So a big importance to understand is that worship is due to God alone, right? We worship God, and that is a fact. Like, we worship God, but what do we do with icons, right? Icons we venerate, and that means that we give honor to them, right?
Mhm.
Because we honor them because we see the meaning behind them. We see the inspiration, we see the writing that was done, the effort, and we see how that brings us closer to God, and from that we are able to worship God, right?
Yeah.
And so there needs to be a special importance. So I hope our listeners and our viewers are able to kind of understand the distinction as well. Joshua, I really appreciate you talking about that story of the oral tradition of the letter to King Abgar. I think it's really important to kind of understand, especially in the context of the Orthodox faith, and how the Orthodox faith sees that as a very important oral tradition that gets continued on as well. It's very unique as well, because in the Catholic perspective, that's not something that we see right there. Like you talked about, there is the like similarities in terms of the way history kind of connects it, but at the same time there is that separation and difference as well. So I think for Catholics especially, it's a really unique thing. Like we talked about in our Mallingra Catholic Church, right? We had origins from the Mallingra Orthodox Church, right? And so kind of having that tie in together as well, it's really cool. for Catholics to especially see that as well. So thank you for sharing. I hope our listeners were able to really get to be inspired from that as well. But yeah, I think what will be really cool to really talk about is the next part, which is talking about some of the symbols, right? That is very unique to the to icons, but specifically to like the Syriac tradition as well. And I know I had done some research on this as well because I really want to understand, because I know like when I see a lot of like Syriac tradition icons, there's a lot of beauty and a lot of joy that it brings me because it's just so unique. You never see anything quite like that. And also, of course, I know, of course, you've studied this, extensively, not just Syriac, but also, other forms of icons as well, from other different origins. And so I wanted to ask you, like, what do you see in terms of what are some unique traits in for icons in the Syriac tradition?
Of course, yeah. So there's a lot of things that you can look out for, right? The whole point of an icon is the whole story of that saint, right? The whole story of whoever is being depicted, right? And so to be able to first understand the basic layer, and then it's like layers of paint. You unravel each layer, and it's like another meaning. It's another symbol, right? And so there's so many aspects to it. One thing I would love to reference is Saint Maximus the Confessor, right? One thing he said is, we always wonder why are these icons always looking like they're mad? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest. I look at these icons. I sometimes get scared. It's like they're staring straight into my soul, right? And so the thing behind that is they're communicating dispassion, right? They're communicating the fact that they have defeated the passions of this world and transcended, just like Acason said earlier, transcending, right? That's what love is. That's what beauty is, right? Transcending. And so transcending past this life into a life of true happiness and a life of true promise, right? Through Christ Almighty, through God Himself, right? So that's why we see all these like serious icons, these all of them are serious, right? You don't see a smile, right? Because there's nothing to smile about, as they went through so many yeah, I'll be honest,
There's nothing to smile about. Yeah, displeasure in the world. Like, all right.
Exactly. They came into this world. They had one, picture. They're like, I'm gonna defeat, the hands of Satan, right? I'm gonna defeat whatever he's gonna place in front of me. The temptations, the struggles, right? And even though they struggled, even though they fell, that's why we venerate them, because we can use those examples in our life, right? That's like I said, like I started off struggling. We all have been in struggles, right? That's why like I look at initiatives like this, right? Like this podcast and other initiatives that other youth are taking, right? That it's so powerful, as it's not like they're just going to church on Sundays, like you said before, right? Like we all struggled. They just go Sunday, Qurbana, and then they go home, right? Rather, our faith is a mystery that we have to search through, right? And it only gets more beautiful the more you search. But sorry for going to that tangent, but to get a little bit closer into what you asked, right? Like the specifics, like what do I look out for, or what should everyone look out for, right? And a lot of it is symbolism through facial features, as well as symbolism through what they're like. Often they're depicted with the gospel, often they're depicted with their own writing, right? We can see the writing on the tablets or on the scrolls that are often in their hands. Or we see, I'm gonna be honest, we see things like big foreheads, right? We see things like big noses, right? Like, what are these symbols, right? And so to go into that a little bit, we see often saints who have a lot of famous writings, right? They are depicted with greater foreheads. Why? Because they have so much wisdom, right? That's symbolized, like the wrinkles symbolize their wisdom, their how much they've went in depth within their life to devote to Christ, right? And then there are things like the nose. This I did not know before doing a lot of research on it. It's to remind us that we must be in tune to the incense of the prayers, right? One thing that my Achin taught us recently was we use all five senses during our services, right? There's not a single thing that we leave out, and that's intentional. We can't say that's like not on purpose, right? Christ did everything for a reason. Everything has its own symbol. And so to see an icon with these long noses, big nostrils, right? What is the purpose? Because we must be in tuned to that incense that we're given, right? We believe the prayers walk with the incense, right? The prayers are taken up to God, to Christ. And so with that, we must also remind ourselves that we're not just smelling this great smelling incense. We're actually sending our prayers through it, right? The smell, the senses that we use to truly incorporate ourselves within the Qurbana. It's not like we're just standing there, right? We're receiving the body and blood. And then there are things like big lips, right? Lips are often like a little exaggerated, right? But they're always closed. Why? Because that shows the importance of silence, right? Silence is a huge thing within our faith, right? It's the biggest challenge is the first step of our faith actually is to stand in front of God in silence. Hardest thing you can do, right? Because we stand in Qurbana, right? That's our first thing is to receive the body and blood after baptism, after all the preliminary things. We stand in front of him, and we can truly proclaim that we ourselves are theologians through standing in silence in front of Christ. That it's standing in silence in front of God, to be able to revere to him, like you said, Kason, earlier, revere, right? We're reverence all the time, right? That's the main part. And then we see things like eyes, right? That's to show that their vision, right? To show that their wisdom is beyond perception, right? It's to show that they see the life of Christ. Like we see examples in the Bible, like Job, right? He's shown just a portion of what God thinks, and he can't grasp it, right? It's impossible.
Yeah.
And like you said, the mysteries, the invisible God, right? Through our holy mysteries, that's why we call it the holy mysteries, right? It's given that, we're shown that, and that's why through these icons and through these saints, we are also seeing glimpse of it, right? Not saying that they've seen everything, right? But through them, through their eyes, we see the glimpse of their life and their struggles and the different things like that. And then outside of facial features and things like that, we see symbols like objects, right? As I said before, we see crosses in the hands of usually martyrs, right, who died in the name of Christ. We see scrolls, I said before, those who have writings, wisdom, right? A lot of books written, just like you said, St. John Chrysostom, all these different fathers are shown. St. Basil, the theologian, he's always shown with his gospel books, his writings, right? And so that's to show us the importance, the aspect of we're shown the life. That's their life. That's what they did. They fought for our faith. They led us to be able to come here now, right? We're thankfully we're not fighting too much, but you know what I'm saying? Like we're in a much better state than what they were in, right? They struggled beyond our understanding, right? Like I'm gonna be honest, like I can never it's hard for me to understand losing your life over something you believe in so much, right? That shows that dispassion. That shows that they don't care about this earthly world, right? It's beyond that. It's what's beyond. It's what's after that. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then different examples, like I don't know if you guys have seen, there's one with St. Thomas holding a church, right? That's to show his like example. It's usually like St. Thomas and St. Paul, I believe, right? They're holding it together as to show the amount of churches they've established, right? And to show that movement. And then they're even crazy as it is, we see angels with swords, right? Angels with weapons. We also see saints with weapons. Why? It's not like we're promoting fighting, right? It's rather they are the warriors of the faith. They defended the faith through their word, through their actions. Often they did fight people, right? They did cause bloodshed. They did go through bloodshed. That's all in the name of Christ, right? They had to for their faith, right? And eventually, led to their martyrdom. But at the end, they knew it's beyond that. And then one last thing, one specific example that I really like is St. John the Baptist, right? So what an icon it is, as we see he looks all raggedy. He looks like he's homeless, right? He lived in the wilderness.
Basically is.
Yeah, exactly. He ate honey, he ate bees, he ate all these different things, right? He lived in the wilderness all his life. And we see one specific thing in that icon that really I had no idea about. We see angel wings on him, right? What is this symbol, right? Like we think to ourselves, like, he was a man. He's not an angel, right? Angels,
That's true.
Angel Gabriel.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, exactly. Angels are depicted with wings. But why is St. John? St. John the Baptist depicted with wings, right? Let me ask you guys. Do you guys have any guesses or anything like that? No wrong answer.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, like angel wings, right? The aspect of wings is like the heavenly connection, right? And so there's and we know that like John the Baptist is like, there's someone coming after me, right?
Yeah, after me,
there's that story, right? So and I think it's very similar to the aspect of like the way that angels are also portrayed in the Bible as well, right? They're also preparers,
messengers, right?
Right, messengers, right? So there's that connection. Maybe, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
To Elijah, probably. Like people thought he was Elijah, and is it because of that? I don't know. This is a tough one because when I went to some Orthodox places, I do see John the Baptist with wings. I'm like, is this Gabriel or some other angel that they're trying to represent?
Exactly. It's like often like a misconception and like just things that people overlook, right? There's so many symbols that we overlook it, but you guys hit it right on the dot. It's because he's known as the divine messenger, right? He's known as the forerunner of Christ. He prepared everyone for his coming. And so, sorry, I got excited about St. John.
No, that's good.
But
we love
it. So like you hit it right on the dot. All you guys, it's because he's that divine messenger. We see him with wings. So obviously icons have some type of structure to them, how they're made, like how they're symbolized, like what goes in their hand, what doesn't. But then there's also these outliers, right? These things that we don't see in regular icons that are unique, right? And so like these are just some of the insights, I guess. So I'm glad to share them to you guys. I hope you guys are able to like now look at icons a little differently. You know what I'm saying?
I'm writing the notes down. I
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think this is gonna help us in our one of the segments that we have planned out.
Mhm.
So I'm excited for that. But before we go on to that, right? You talk about clearly you've done the research. You know, you understand the symbolism that goes into icons, right? So we kind of want to ask you, what does the process look like, right? I know that a lot of iconographers take their time to um, fast and pray and do a lot of research before they go on to write the icon. So we want to kind of understand, what is your take on that? What is your preparation towards writing an icon?
Yeah, definitely. I'm still to go off your point about the fasting. I'm still trying to, discipline myself to be able to do that. It's just hard because,
It is.
what we say is we also live a regular life, right? Like we also have school, we also have different things in our lives that get in the way. It's not like I can become a full-time iconographer. So knowing my schedule and things like that, it's a little hard for me to fast. But during like Lent seasons like this, like Great Lent that we're in, it's a great opportunity, right? Like I'm like more honed in, more locked in, I guess you can say, to writing these icons. But to I guess give you guys a little bit more details. It first honestly starts with what I'm trying to depict, right? Who I'm trying to depict. What is the saint that I'm writing about? And so I do like my own little personal research, right? There's great pages out there, right, on Instagram, on your own any web browser, right, to be able to look it up and just understand what is going behind each paint stroke, what is going behind each detail that I'm putting in, right? I can easily go there and just do whatever I want, make it look like the saint, and then give it to the person.
Right.
But it's like
Mm.
it's a learning process for me. It's not like I know every saint, right? There's
Right.
countless saints in both our
Yeah,
churches,
it
right?
is.
Right.
That we have no idea what some of them did, right? Like the icon that I painted for my head hutchin, MK Kyriakos hutchin, it was Saint Julita, right? And Saint Kyriakos, right? That's where he was how he was
Oh,
named. And so I had no idea. I had no idea about the story, right? No idea. But then learning about it and just seeing they died for their faith, right? They refused to accept the king's whatever the king was. I forget the story fully, but whatever the king's pressure was to uh to banish Christianity in your life and to rather move towards his own religion and to be able to give up what you believed in. They refused, right?
right.
And they met their fate. And the craziest part of St. Kyriakos was a child, right? He saw his mother tortured and killed, and the king gave him another chance, but he didn't take it. Rather, he said, I'm a Christian. That was his last words, and he was also killed, right? And so we see examples like that. Like I'm never going to know that unless I do some research, right? So I guess the first step is research, and then comes like practical things, right? Like actual making of the different aspects to the icon. So I have some examples I'll show you guys as I'm going on, right? And so it all starts with the board, right? Is what I call it, the gesso board, gesso board, however you say it, and it all starts with wood, right? And so the amazing part about iconography and the big symbolism is it's such a hard process. Why? Because as Christ made us from dirt, we all return to that dirt, right? So just as icons, these aren't artificially made, these aren't made with man-made things. Rather, it's given from what God has provided us, right?
Right.
So that's why a lot of the things that you guys are going to hear me say is like earth materials, earth minerals, right? Different things like that that create these icons. So the first part is obviously getting your wood, right? And so it's like any I like using plywood, right? That's the lightweight and things like that. And so I use that, I shave it down, I get it to the right size that I need it to, depending on what I'm depicting. And then you go through this long process of gessoing the board. So you can't paint on wood as the paint will go in the grains, right? So the whole
Mm.
point is you need to make it into something that you can paint on. We see things like painting boards and stuff like that with the linen on it, and you paint on the linen, right? It's like tightly woven and stuff like that. So actually, to do this, you take the linen cloth and you place it over the wood, right? And you use something called rabbit skin glue, right? As I said before, it's not regular glue, right? It's something that God has provided us, right? And so
Mm.
using rabbit skin glue, you glue it down, and it takes a lot of process. So the rabbit skin glue's in like bead form. So you melt it down, you do a ratio between water to the glue compound, and then you melt it down, and then you go layers and layers and layers. And it's a pain. I won't lie,
Mm. Mm.
um because why? Because it doesn't always work out. It doesn't always stick to the wood because often the
Mm.
wood is like bent in different ways. It's a little like a little contoured in different areas, right? So it's a struggle. But then once you glue that on, you do the gesso process. So the gesso process is you take chalk, right? So chalk powder, so Yeah, you're calcium carbonate. Yeah, that's what it is. So
Yeah.
I was thinking about the
I was
compound.
like, oh, the chemical
Good
compound.
chemistry,
All
good
right.
Chemical.
chemistry.
I was gonna ask you guys. Yeah, phone a friend. Phone a friend.
What do
Mitochondria
I
is the powerhouse of the cell. That's all.
Powerhouse.
That's all I.
Wrong subject. Wrong subject.
I got you with the engineering stuff. I got you.
Yeah. Go.
So then you take calcium carbonate and you mix it with the rabbit skin glue that you have, right? And this creates a chalky compound. And with that chalky compound, you do layers and layers and layers. You do around 15 layers, right? And what you often see is like it's rough, right? It's like a rough thing, but you can paint on it. As you can see, it's like you see this and then you see this, right? It's very different. And so this is actually paintable, like you can paint on it since it's smooth, flat, and it's leave some residue, but it's a part of that process. But so you do these layers and then you go into the refining process. You refine it down with a sander, you sand it down, you sand the edges to make sure they're clean, right? And then that's the board making process. Around 2 weeks, that's what it takes for everything to dry, everything to set. And usually I make them in bulk to, because I don't have
of course.
like that, right? So I recently actually, like just this week, I made like 10 boards, right? Just to be able to have like them in handy depending on the projects I get and things like that. And so the next comes the fun part, right? The actual making of the icon, right? Like it's you realize that it's creative, but it's also restrictive creativity, right? Because it's not like you can do whatever you want. I can't just put like a hair strand on a mini, right? Like that's my own interpretation. I can't do that. So there's always like a structure to things. So I have some examples. So I'm only in the sketching process. So this is an example. I bet they'll give you guys a better picture, but this is one of mini, right? And so he's been depicted with his staff and with his cross and things like that, and different things that he's stood for, right? And then you have examples like, what's his name?
It's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so another saint, right?
Saint.
That I had to depict for someone.
Athanasius or
Basil.
Irenaeus.
It's a name that I've never heard of. I can actually pull it up right now.
What's
that
the inspiration behind this one?
Yeah,
What's
who's
that?
it?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. So a church in New York actually asked me to create a little gift that they could hand to their school teachers.
That's Saint Irenaeus.
It's Irenaeus, right? Of Lyons.
No,
so.
actually, see, a lot of these saints look very, very similar. It's Saint Clement of
Alexander. Okrid. Okay, not
Okrid. Yeah. So another saint. I've never seen like example. I've never heard of it. And just like you said, right? You thought it looked like the saint behind you, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, because like a lot of them have the same structure. A lot of them have their robe, right, with the cross on it. A lot of them have their books that they've written, right? But then, and then a lot of them have the wisdom, right? That's why most of their faces are the same, similar, right? So a lot of these icons are the same, and plus it makes sense because we're all made in the image of Christ, right? Like we're all seen as one. So seeing variation is like a little rare, right? Often you see examples like a really cool icon of Christ and Adam, right, with the same face that they have.
because he's a new Adam, right?
Exactly.
New Adam,
right. So examples like that. So it's beautiful. And then from this comes the painting process, right? It's very different to regular acrylics, regular oil painting, regular watercolor, right? This is fine minerals. So I can show you some examples. So like depending on what colors you need and things like that, you go through the process of first you have to order them, right? Of course, a lot of money, but it's worth it at the end of the day because the pigments, like it's honestly so unique, right? It stands out more than it does, in my opinion, than acrylics and things like that. And so these are natural pigments, such as like this example here is called natural red oxide, right? It's named after where they come from and like usually like the tint or the color that they are, right? Or the hue, I guess you can say. You have Blue Ridge yellow ochre, titanium white. It's like the main one. Everything starts off with white and goes from there. But as I said before, these are minerals, right? How do they become paint? That's when this part comes in. This is egg yolk with white vinegar, right? And so again, this was an early process that the early church iconographers did, right? Since they needed some type of medium, they didn't have acrylics, they didn't have man-made artificial things, right? So they used a great binding agent, which is egg yolk, right? Yeah. And then mix it with vinegar to create longevity, right? And then use this with the mixture of these pigments, right? Beat the mineral into the egg yolk, and it created one solid solution, right? And so a lot of it is very varying depending on how much of this you put in, how much of the egg yolk solution, how much of the mineral you put in, right? You need to get the right ratios so that one, it doesn't flake off when you paint, right? Because it's egg at the end of the day, right? We all eat eggs and they get
Yeah,
crispy on the edges, right? And
yeah,
so that's the last thing you want. And then the other side, you don't want it to be too watery, so or else it won't dry, right? Like
This is for
this,
wood
it's
primarily.
on the wood, on the wood.
This is for wood. Okay. What about
Yeah.
like icons on like walls? Do they have like binding agent like this or?
So all the icons that are handmade, like hand painted, are done with this process.
Yeah.
And but then
Okay.
you have other icons, like the ones we see at churches, right? The ones that
Yeah.
are quickly, readily made that you can buy, things like that. That's why they're cheaper, right? Because they're often just printed on the wood, right? And so like they're printed and they put finish on it, so it looks like a nice icon. But yeah,
I believe I've read somewhere or heard it that Leonardo da Vinci painted with egg yolk and things like that, and that's why
yeah,
exactly what you were saying, how why things would
crazy.
like
I,
peeling.
I use Da Vinci brushes and things like that as well.
Oh, look at this.
These are like you said, like the people who use them the best have those products out there. It's just you got to search for it, right? It took a lot of money and a lot of research and things like that to be able to find these things, to know what to use. Because I started off with a $5 brush and a couple of acrylic paints that you could find at my like cousin's house, right? My baby cousin. So it's like there's a deeper meaning to it once you dive in and you go through the whole process, definitely. And then I guess at the end, usually you see that gold outline, right? So this is not real gold because I don't want to waste any yet, but this is like gold leaf. So you often like primer the background and you use a special type of glue that's like gold leaf glue, and then you wait for it to dry and then you place the gold leaves
Can
on
I
it.
see it again?
Oh yeah, of course. It's very, very flimsy. So it's like
Yeah, figure's like really delicate right now.
I have the fan running at low.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, there one flaked out.
Oh, one
It
flew
just-
off. See that?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, the gold.
Oh my gosh. There
I have
goes
like
$25.
exactly.
It's like
That's why I don't use real gold all the like as of now because I don't want to waste it, right? And so like through the process, like as I learn to better, it's called gilding, right? As I learn how to gild better, I'm gonna start using better products, things like that. But for now, as a practice, this is my like initiative.
yeah, this is for once it's carved. Let's say the name of the saint or
the halo,
right?
I
You
think.
just you
Yeah.
you
So like
put
the
it
different
on. You
details.
just
Yeah.
okay, got it.
Like
For the
just like you
halo.
said, usually halo, the gospel books usually have like a little
Yeah.
sign on it. That's when you put the glue on, you make sure the glue is like the right design, and then you put the gold leaf and then you like, rub it off so the extra gets off.
Okay. Nice.
I think I saw this on one of your posts.
Yeah.
For
I
like the
just
halo.
started using the gold leaf process. It was a rough one to start with, but then as I went on, it learned a lot more and it's gotten out better. Like for example, like Saint Jacob, the wrestling the angel, right? That was my like big one that I did recently for Winter Summit for one of our camps.
Yeah.
So doing that, honestly, that was the big leap. Like I went from the Coptic icon I made of Saint Mary to to Jacob fighting the angel, and that was a huge leap. And I think that's what really solidified my consistency within it, right? And how to do it, and really taught me a lot in the process.
Awesome.
Jeez, man.
Aaron,
This is a process. This is very very impressive, by the way.
Thank
Oh
you,
my
thank you.
gosh.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I think I wanted to ask a quick question before we move on. You talked about like using the egg yolk, right? And it's different compared to just like the mass production, simpler way of just like printing it, right? In terms of like durability, right? Do we see these things, right? In terms of I think about this in terms of like the historical aspect, right? We have icons that have been preserved through generations, and then we also have icons that have sadly been lost through the ages as well. And the nice part is, right, we talk about the aspect of like oral tradition over time. The things that we've seen get passed on, right? These traditions get passed on. But in the sense of these icons, right, in the way that you're creating it, do you look out for like the duration of time that these can be preserved? Is that something that you consider? Or is there better things that you can do in terms of like making them last longer, things like that, like preserving them or keeping them, storing them?
Definitely. So let's see, eventually comes that like fine line between how can you keep this, it's just like you said, not temporary, right? It has to be long lasting, but you also want to keep it natural. That's why I do a lot of it the natural way, right? Natural pigments, natural elements. But then at the end, I do use something called Mod Podge, however you say it. It's like a layer that you put on top that seals it, so it's waterproof and so it's wear-proof. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question about one thing.
Yeah.
Like strokes, like how how you asked this question or you mentioned this, sorry. you were confused like how people have to apply pressure and all that.
Mhm.
How do you learn that? Like, you just have to do trial and error, or is there like any motions that you had to do to get, certain things painted? Yeah.
Just a lot of just patience, right? And just like you said, a lot of trial and error, right? So like with my first icon to compare to now, the brush stroke size went from say like this much to like millimeters, right? Like it's
Wow.
so
Okay.
thin, right? I would say just in the neck portion of Saint Jacob of my last icon I did over like 200 strokes just right there, right?
Oof.
Of blending, because a lot of it's blending, right? A lot of it's
Mm.
like it can't look like it's too chopped up.
Mhm.
So you have to blend it all in, and that includes just using egg yolk by itself to be able to drag a little bit of the paint into the other areas, or even grabbing new paint, right? Making more and things like that. And it's a lot of the process, but at the end of the day, a lot of it's also doing it in prayer, right? And so a lot of
Mm.
it comes with prayer beforehand, right? I know that there are iconographers that like monks, right, that do iconography that do prayer every time they change the color, right? Like these are like different things that they do that really solidify the fact that it's an icon made without hands, right? It's our best attempt at recreating the first icon we were ever given, right? It all goes back to that first time, that first icon we were ever given, Christ Himself, right?
Mm.
Who willingly gave Himself to us, who God sent for us. And so, same way, we try and replicate that as much as we can. Obviously, we are all human, right? At the end of the day, we're all working towards that same salvation through Him, but we do our best, definitely.
Just like you talk about how like minute these little changes are. Has there been a time where you've gotten too frustrated or anything like that where you're like, all right, I gotta take a break or I gotta move on from this for a little bit?
Gotta pray a little bit more.
Yeah. Has there been something like that?
Because it's like often paint. I mean, nothing that you do often likes to work with you, right? Like when I'm painting, where I'm like, I just did this 5 minutes ago. Why is it not the same right now? Right. And so these different times you get frustrated, right? But a lot of it's also going back to your roots. You got to understand the meaning of what you're doing, right? Like often I think, man, this is going to someone that they hold, that they treasure themselves, that they venerate to, right? And
Yeah.
not just that, like, why are my unworthy hands given God's grace to be able to depict this icon, right? So I must like understand and revere to that understanding and like often put away my passions of the world, right? Anger, right? My frustration, right? Like just you're frustrated because you're sitting there for hours and hours. You're not getting a result you want, right? That leads to frustration. But like you said, I often take breaks, right? A lot of it's like mental clarity, right?
Mm.
Since you're focused on something so much, you often burn out. And that's the last thing you want to do, right? So obviously keeping in prayer, obviously taking breaks and just overall like you want to enjoy the process, right?
Yeah.
To me, it's like a journey, right? Just like how Lent is a journey to the empty tomb. That's what we like to say in our church,
Mm.
right? Same way, iconography is a journey into that life, the life of the saint. So being able to take that journey day by day, step by step, is like a huge grace. It's a huge blessing that I'm given God's grace to be able to do.
And
Definitely.
And
then
yeah,
like
go ahead.
just one last thing that and it goes to show that each icon is special on its own and no
Yeah.
like it's not
There's
the
no
same,
identical
right?
icons.
There is no
Absolutely.
identical icons, right? Like every brushstroke is a little different. Every process that went into it is a little different. So it
Yeah.
shows the effort goes into it and the amount of patience that goes into it. It's
And
incredible.
I like this too because when God makes us, because icons are a reflection of God's creativity as well, right?
Mhm.
Because God is the creator, He is very creative. He's the
Yeah.
most creative. He's the most creative, right? So like everything is not everything is the same. Like us, right? When He created each and every one of us, we are
Mhm.
different. We have our unique talents. We have our unique charisms. We have unique facial features. Everything, like even our thumbprint, everything is unique. That goes credit to our Almighty the first icon, which is
Yeah.
our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So, right. So, yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
it's amazing.
Definitely. And that's
I,
like the
I
big part about it.
Yeah, no. Continue, please.
No. That's what I was
Oh,
like the whole thing is like it all goes back to him, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah,
that's at the end of the day, we're trying to glorify his name through those who dedicated their lives. Like imagine us putting everything down, right? Putting our family aside, right? And just living as a monk or living as a true
yeah,
theologian that just focuses on one thing their whole life. Like it's so hard, especially nowadays, right? To live that ascetic life. So being able to give respect, just like you said, Aaron, being able to give that honor, right, to the saints and to honor their life and to hope and pray and ask for intercession that we may also live a life according to God and to be able to follow their examples.
living the friendship of Christ, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
exactly, exactly. Well, I think we've done extensive conversations now in terms of describing what icons are and also talking about the process as well. And of course, that's a process of creating icons. But I think we can get into the next segment, which is probably some of my favorite things to do, is to really look at icons and really reflect on them. And so I think if everyone's ready, we would love to see if maybe we can all look at some icons and kind of see what each of our perspectives are.
Yes.
I think we have a little bit of a list of icons that we're going to go through. And so, yeah, we'll start off with the first one. Joshua, do you want to give us an introduction onto this one as well? Yeah.
Yeah. So the first icon that I brought up is one of my favorites, right? It's the Pantokrator, right? It's the all God, like God's best icon in my opinion, right? Christ's best icon. It shows his true divine nature, right? Both essence, as you guys will say soon. But it's also the teacher icon, right? It teaches us about who he is, his natures, and how he honestly loves us and he sees us in the same way, right? And Pantokrator in Greek means ruler of all, right? So he is the ruler of all mankind and he just wants the best for us. So I would love, this is what I've been waiting for, this to see what you guys can point out, pick out, and using maybe some of the things I told you guys before, right? Using those facial features, things that he's holding, just to be able to give me some details. I have some written down, so I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right, dude. You're interviewing us at this point. All right, bro. This is perfect. I love this. Oh, this is so beautiful. Of course, let's start with the frown, right? Right? Yeah.
Like I have to confess, I kind of cheated. I did some research on this already.
I mean, this is the most famous icon of
Yeah.
Christ, right? The first icon that people do have in their households or in their icon corners is the Pantokrator, the Almighty Creator, right? Yeah.
And
So it
I
makes
made
sense.
this joke already, but kind of looks like Jesus is giving us the rock eyebrows. You know, like you smell what the rock is cooking. You know,
All
so
right.
so when I first saw it, I was like, huh, like that is odd, right? That's the first thing that caught my eye. Like, why is there this duality there, right? And
Mhm.
Joshua, you kind of touched on this, that human aspect of it, and then there's this divine judge, the King of Kings that is coming down to judge, right? So that there's that split that we can see in that two sides. On the left, you see that peaceful, loving Jesus, right? And on the other side, you see on the right, you see this Christ that is very serious, that has the book of judgment that will come down, right? So that's something that I noticed.
Yeah. Also, one other thing. Let's go down a little bit from the face a little bit. But you see the both sides, right? The hand, the sign where the peaceful side, right? The one that is loving, merciful, right? That I it's a blessing that when Achins give us, right? In the Orthodox tradition, you guys also do the same thing. I think the Achins do this in our part represent the Trinity, but it's very similar, I would say, right? You see, this is, of course, I've also cheated on this too because I've learned the Pantokrator a while ago. But when I learned this, I was like, what? There's so much symbolism in this. The hand signal, there's the Christ's name, right? The Christogram, right? The ICXC, like, of course, it's Greek, it's a little different, right? The iota, the lunate sigma, which is then the chi and the lunate sigma again, right? Which represents the name of Christ, Jesus Christ, right? So it's in one one hand, right? It's all in one hand, which is so crazy because usually you have the name of IC or like the sigma, whatever I said, on the image, on the icon itself, but here it's different, right? You have it all in his hand. So it's so amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. I think these guys, like really touched on a lot of it. I think what I like really, because I didn't want to cheat on this one, I'll be honest. I wanted to come into this.
No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
All right, buddy.
I think for me, what I really noticed from this one was, especially on like we talk about the left side and the right side, right? The exaggeration of features, right? We've talked about this a little bit earlier, right? What features are we noticing and how are they portrayed in, right? And so like we talked about like the eye and the frown, right? And we talked about like just hand placement, like Book of Judgment, right? Peace sign, but then also just like the size of the head, the skull hair, right? On one side as well, right? There is exaggeration that is also of importance to actually note as well. And so it's not just maybe specific things, but also features, sizing, shapes we've talked about as well. So those are also, I'm hoping, things that our viewers are also noting as well as we're going through these.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
two more things.
Okay.
Sorry, if you want to go.
Oh, no.
Two more.
Go ahead.
I love this.
No, we're very passionate about it. That's why. I learned this recently. underneath the cloak, right?
Yeah.
You see a golden, a stole, like a stole or something, right?
Mhm.
That represents his divinity, right? Like his like holiness, right?
Yeah.
Because yeah, his judge being, like he's cloaked in his divinity, right? Which sits underneath what he's wearing on top, right? So that's very, very interesting to
And
me.
what my I believe the top thing is called hymation or hymation, I believe, and that's the humanity. I think, from
Hmm.
my research, I believe that's what I understood. But a couple of things that I wanted to point out that we already talked about. The gold, right? We see a gold halo again, shows the
Hmm.
divinity of Christ, right? You see this closed mouth of contemplation of silence. We see relatively like big forehead, wisdom, right? And there are different like depictions of Pantokrator, right? One of them
Yeah.
has long flowing hair, and it shows the passage of time. Uh,
Hmm.
right? So there's you don't notice these things right away.
Yeah.
Like the amount of detail that goes into this is just incredible. Just and also I wanted to say like we talked about John the Baptist, how he's depicted as often as frail or like bag like very like beaten up and like
Hmm.
in that way, right? Crucifix, right? Obviously Jesus has been beaten and he's crucified, right? He's suffering. But here what you see is a strong like
Mm.
there's no weakness here, right? It shows
Yeah.
that strength of God, like that strong divinity of Christ. If that makes sense, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, some things that I noticed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Awesome.
halo of Christ is the most unique halo in
Yeah.
all of icons because he does have the cross on it.
Mm.
Usually there's like also Greek symbols on that.
Yeah.
I think I am who I am, or
Hmm.
something represents that the
Alpha
divine name of
Omega.
God, right? Alpha and
Alpha.
Omega, right? So it's the most unique halo in all of icons. So
Yeah.
that's you could find Christ easily in an icon because yeah, yeah,
Also, everything you guys said was great. Honestly, you guys hit all the points, right? Um, I guess like just going off that facial features, right? The eyes tell the story, right? Like you look into Christ's eyes, you look at both sides. One eye is so like warm, like you said,
yeah,
Kason. It's so inviting, right? While the other side, it's like more stern, right? It's showing that there's this dual nature that we must understand that Christ has. But remember, he's always a loving God, right? At the end of the
mhm,
day, he's always going to love us. He sent his only son down. That is the true representation of an icon, right?
right,
He was crucified on the cross for our sins. So
right,
great. And then one little fun fact, I guess, right? So
mm,
it doesn't have to do with the icon specifically. It's just where it's usually depicted in the church. So in Eastern Orthodox churches, right, it's often seen at the top of the dome, right?
oh,
It's
okay. In
also
the Hagia
called,
Sophia,
yeah,
yeah, in the
all the way
Hagia, yeah, the
across.
dome, yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
And it's usually seen as, it's also said the apse of the church, right? And so
mm,
this is reserved for the Pantocrator icon, just like you said earlier, how both sorry, how there are different versions of it, right? As you said,
mm,
there's long hair, right? There's also one where it's like this, right? This is not
yeah,
often seen depicted, but there's different artistic styles, I guess you can say, depending
right,
on who's the iconographer, who's painting it, whatever. And so this is at that top. Why? Because it is the representation of the whole church being his, right? So we are all
mm,
under him, right? This is why it's also Pantocrator, literally translates to in Greek as the ruler of all, right? So we are all under his divine essence. We're all under his, uh, guidance, right? So
mm,
seeing that light. So when you look up, right, you're looking up to the heavens, and that's
yeah,
the first thing you see. Just very impactful and very,
yeah,
warming.
oof,
What?
gosh, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm shocked. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to see the judgment side. Oh, no, not that side. I only want to see the loving side.
That's why
But
we'll go with Eric's version with the flowy hair.
oh, but yeah, judgment is because of his love, right? We make our choice at the end of the day. We choose to be facing him or away from him, right?
Yeah,
So he's just doing that. He's just giving us what we want. It's
showing
all
us,
his
yeah,
love. Yeah,
and that's the whole thing, right? He's voluntarily showing us that there are two natures. I like, how would we feel if we obviously don't know how he's going to judge, right? That's just one mystery that we'll never understand because we can
yeah,
never
that's true.
fully encapsulate what Christ, how he thinks, how God thinks, right? But
Right.
to
Oh,
be able to be shown that there's two sides is giving us a huge advantage in our life, right? Knowing that,
mm,
okay, like this is the way we must live, and that our Christ is loving us, but he will also see our doings, right? See our wrongs, see our rights, and there is a judgment portion to it, but it's all out of love, just like you said.
mm.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we've spent a good amount of time like really talking about this and lots of great perspectives, lots of great thoughts. And I hope our listeners and our viewers have been able to really get a better understanding
Yeah.
of the Pantokrator. Yeah, I think it's a good time to move on to our second icon that we're going to
Mhm.
review. And this one's called Icon of Resurrection.
Yep.
Joshua, do you want to kind of explain this one?
Yeah, so as we can see, right, it's one of the most depicted icons, especially during our time right now, right? The Great Lent season. It's
Mm,
the what we're all building up to, right? Good Friday, when Christ is crucified on the cross, right? For our sins. He takes all of humanity's wrongs and creates a right out of it, right? He defeats death
Mm.
for us. And that's why, like in our churches, we see black, right? The symbolism of the color black. Why? Because it represents death, right? It represents all the sin in the world. That's why we see our uchins and we see our bishops and these different highly figures within our church wear their cassock, right? They wear a black cassock. Why? Because that represents the death that they are responsible for. Right? They are taking the sins for us. That's why it's said in the Bible multiple times, like they are judged harder at the end of the day, right? They are taking that responsibility of devoting their lives um we are all under their responsibility. We're all their children, right? We are all the children of our priests. And so they are taking that responsibility to be able to put on that cassock of death and to live their life in suffering, right? They're taking their cross every day, carrying their cross like we're all supposed to. So that's why they're huge examples in our lives, right? Our priests, our bishops, our cardinals, however we mention them. And that's why this icon's a great representation. And we also see the supporting cast, right? As I like to say, the believers, Saint Mary, right? All these different prominent figures in Christ's life who are surrounded at this time. But then we also see the heavenly presence. We also see the angels, right? We also see the sun and moon, right? What do these things represent? So for the viewers watching, maybe take a pause, right? Pause the video and see if, you guys can point out some things, right? And then resume, right? So we can see what all three of you guys could come up with. And there's a lot for this one.
I do.
So
There's a
so
lot in
much.
this
There's
one.
be
so
ready.
much.
Yeah.
You want to take it from top down? You want to?
Let's do
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So one thing I noticed, or one thing that comes back to my head is the when Jesus says, "Don't you think I could summon legions of angels at this time?" Right? We kind of see that small fraction of that with the four angels there, right? It kind of reminds me of that, and I was wondering what it was. It's a bit unclear on my end what those two circles were. Now it kind of makes sense. The sun and the moon, right? The sun darkened and all like
Yep.
so, you're right, and that the imagery is there. Um, I see the water and blood coming from the side of Jesus again, showing the duality of Christ, right? Go ahead, Kisan. Did you have
Oh,
something to
this
add
is such an interesting one
on?
because no, it's so beautiful. As we go down and down, I think there's when I have more of an interpretation. But the one on top, the I think it's supposed to mean INRI, Jesus Nazarenus Rex Idiorum, right? The name like Jesus Christ, Jesus Nazareth, King of the Jews, right?
Yeah.
But I also see one symbol. I don't know if this is right. I could be completely wrong. But there's a serpent like at the last character of it. I could be wrong, but it looks like a snake, like which represents
on the top.
Golgotha, which is like the number 21 reference that I had earlier. Because when you look to this, you'll have you'll be saved, right? You'll be healed, right?
Yes.
That's the references because that's what Golgotha in the Orthodox churches and the Catholic Eastern Catholic churches we have the Golgotha erected during the time of the Great Lent and even after until Easter or even after that, right? So that could be a reference to that. I am thinking because I just found out right now. I could be completely wrong, but I do see a snake there, which kind of
Is
represents.
it like above the
Well,
letters?
So
Like
right next
it's
to
like on the right, the far
okay,
right one on
delta
the.
or the lambda. Is that lambda? Delta?
Is it delta?
Because it looks
Delta?
like the ones above the letters, maybe more like the accent,
Yeah,
right?
those
The
are
one on
like
the
the
top.
accent.
Yes,
Yeah,
So
but
but
you're
then the
saying,
last character on that, it
Yeah,
looks like a vertical squiggly.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
yeah.
See, like
It's
I
like
didn't even,
very.
you know.
I was like, it looks like a. I mean, the meaning, the theological meaning of the cross and that snake is
Yeah.
also very similar, right? But I did not know that. But if that could be right or wrong, I don't know.
That's why a lot of this is, remember, it's up to interpretation, right? It's how we see the icon, how we view it,
Yeah.
right? There's obviously right or wrong, but at the end of the day, it's like we see the picture of Christ's their death and eventual resurrection, right? So this is a
Right.
beautiful example, and that was a great point. Like I didn't even see that when I looked at it,
Yeah.
but yeah, Continue. There's so many more, guys. You guys got it.
Jeez. Jeez.
Oh wait,
Oh,
Aaron, you're muted.
go ahead, Aaron. Aaron, yeah, yes,
Sorry.
please.
I know we had talked about the angels as well, but I want to talk on that again because I think it's also important to note like the way they're facing as well, right? We talk about direction, right? They're all it looks like they're like flying, like, and it's not just like in a general sense, they're like full body facing directly towards, right? It's like a full scent towards Jesus. And that's also like a very interesting thing to know because usually it's like, you know, there's like the aspect of like when angels are proclaiming, right? Or they're like having holding trumpets in their hand, right? They're like facing outwards, right? And they have like more of like a vertical stance, right? But this one is it's almost like a rushing towards him. So it's very interesting to know.
Give a little bit more about the angels apart, right? The two angels that you said are going towards him, right? We see, just as Jarek said earlier, one's catching the body of the blood and the water, right? Like that's the offering, that's the new covenant that he has with us, right? The and then we see the angel on the right, right? He's rushing towards Christ, right? I believe it's like a towel in his hand, right? But you know, depending on what you zoom in, but it's quickly going to capture like any blood that, you know, is falling or anything like that, as well as these angels are pointed towards Christ because they're going to take his soul, right? They want to guide the soul to heaven, right? They're there to take Jesus' spirit, right? Just as he said, I commit my spirit, right, to God, right? And so the same thing, but you also look closer, and what do you see in the angels' faces on the top two? They're looking away, right? They have their cloak over their face, right?
Oh.
Why? Because they are unable to witness such a scene. That they has the Christ that loves them so much, right?
Yeah.
The Christ that comes from the Father who established the heavens, right? Who the angels work under, right? That their Almighty One is being crucified and shamed on a cross, right? And so they can't bear to witness the sight, but they have to be there to be able to take Jesus' spirit, right? And so I think that's a beautiful way that ties in both heaven and earth, right? It brings in both and shows that duality of Christ, right? And so, and it also shows that this event is not just on earth, it's also being taken place in heaven, right? Where in both realms, Christ is crucified, right? Just in one, he has ascended to the Father. He's sitting on the right hand side of the throne. But on the other, right, we are seeing such a tragedy that is caused by our sins, caused by our lack of faith that we had, right? Our ancestors and forefathers before us, and all the mistakes that we must also understand that, you know, it comes all the way back to us too, right? We continually crucify him to the cross as we sin, as we turn our blind eye, right, to the passions of the world, right? That's why we have these icons to guide us back, right? If the angels can't even look at such a tragedy, how can we continue to cause that tragedy, you know?
Dude.
Wow.
So absolutely right.
And speaking of that sin, right? If we go down more, what we see is the blood of Christ trying to drip into Hades. I believe that is the skull of Adam, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what they say. That's a Golgotha, is the place of the skull, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
It's that
he redeems man, the first
exactly.
man.
Exactly. And I think I've seen somewhere it is you can see both Adam and Eve coming out.
And Eve.
That's the resurrection icon. So it's the one that follows this one, where you can see they're both coming out of their tombs, right? And Christ is holding both their hands as he is defeating hell, right? Defeating Sheol, right?
Sheol.
Do we want to move on to that one?
I think, but this one has a couple things that we
got a ton more still.
Oh,
I
is
would
there?
say.
Okay.
We have a ton more.
Like even before we get like past like the chest of Jesus, right? Like I'm looking at the hands right now, right? And look at the hands and the feet. Blood is pouring out of it, right? I'm trying to think of like other icons where I've seen like that in terms of crucifixion. A lot of times it's just like the puncture mark, right? You see the nail on the hands, and that's it, right? Like but the aspect of like dripping is kind of just like downwards, like that's, I don't know, it's a very powerful scene to see that in an icon.
And it's honestly unheard of. When you look at Byzantine icons and things like that, it's never like a gruesome scene, right? It's never something where you can see such pain and such agony, right? They never, like, you never see the depiction of blood in usual icons, right? Like that's often why is because you don't want to see Christ in such a way. You don't want that to be depicted, right? Some churches do have that depiction, right? That's not saying that's wrong. That's why, like, when you see Orthodox crosses and things like that, it never shows the body of Christ, right? It's always the iconic little the footrest and the sign above and then the cross shape, right? And so it's just that without the body, because we don't want to see that suffering of Christ, right? That suffering of Christ isn't a suffering as he establishes the kingdom through it, right? And then just like you said, like do you guys notice anything with the palms or with the hands specifically? Like any like exaggerated features or anything like that?
Of Jesus?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say
This
that
might be a
everything
little
is very.
outlandish.
I was
Stressed
gonna say
Very
out.
everything
hard.
is very thin and like
Yeah.
stretched
Frail,
out. Yeah.
Stretched out.
wounded, and
Like you said, stretched out, right? That's a huge thing because it looks like Jesus has like Wembenyama a wingspan, right? What's going on there? And so we look at things like that and it's like, why? Why is it so outstretched, right? And that's when we understand it's to show that he is with us at all times, right? Like it's like a huge hug, right? That's how I see it, right?
Yeah.
It's like he's giving us a big hug, telling us that no matter, even in the face of death, we're able to see the love of Christ, right? And so why his palms are upwards, it's a little hard to understand. It took me a little bit of research, but it's to show it's an embrace, right? I said before, like a hug, it's an embrace. It echoes the prayers of the church, right? Remember, we always mention the outstretched hands, right? We always mention the compassion, the love of Christ, right? The embrace, right? And so these different aspects that we have in our liturgy, right? That we represent and that we show every Sunday, right? And it's like only when you look at it like this, like when you look at it through this lens, right, we'll be able to picture and we'll be able to make these connections, right? And so that's the beauty of icons, right? It's a story.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, how much do you love me? Do you love me this much? Do you love me this much?
Yeah,
It's
I love you a lot.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good way.
yeah.
But I'm gonna move down a little bit to the ladies who are present, right? Of course, Mama Mary has her halo and her symbol of her name is depicted. And on the other side, I also see John's as well, right? Is that probably John's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has his halo. Then of course the centurion who professed, "Oh my God,
This is truly
the
the
one
son.
who's realized this is truly the Son of Man," right?
Yeah.
Of course, the mother of Joseph and James, Magdalene Mariam, right? I forget the other woman that was there, but I'm just drawing a blank. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
but they are there too, which is
Yeah. They're all present at
very
that scene, right?
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
with that, maybe I could give you guys a little bit of hints. Is that okay?
Yes,
Just so because I
please.
have
Yeah.
like three more that's like really, really beautiful. Um, let's see. We'll start from this one. So, do you notice anything about maybe the halo
Of
of Christ?
Oh yeah, it's tilted instead of the one with the three
Mhm.
the three corners, right?
There's that,
Uh,
and there's one other detail.
There's letters in
It
it.
might be. I pretty much gave it away. It's the fact that there isn't a halo, right? Like when do we see a
oh
halo on someone that's depicted as crucified, someone that's depicted as dead, right? He's not living, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
But that's the beauty. Even despite going bodily death, earthly death, right?
yeah,
His divinity has not left. Right? His divinity is
Mm.
with him. That shows that duality of. That's why we say it's taking place in heaven and earth, right?
yeah,
In heaven, he's still there. He's still alive. His spirit is with us, right? Even though we can't see physically. Remember, it's blessed are those who see but yet who do not see yet believe,
you
right?
believe, right?
Yeah.
Dude, this is insane. But wow, wow. I mean, this. Okay, I want to talk about the color scheme of
Mm,
some of the M Mother Mary's and John is one that strikes out to me a lot.
yeah,
I know there's been like when I was researching, it's like red sometimes it represents humanity, sometimes it represents divinity, or royalty, right? In John's case, humanity, and in the case of Mother Mary as well, you also have underneath
yeah,
some blue, but sometimes John represents like his gospel, right? Is talks about the divinity of Christ very well, right?
mhm,
So I could see that, of course, Mother Mary who gave birth to the Mother of God, right? She is
yeah.
Theotokos, right? So there is that element, right, to both of them.
It's
That's
awesome.
pretty,
That was a great one because it's like each color. That's why when I'm painting icons, I have to follow the icon that's already made of them, right? It's not like I could just color them in any color.
yeah,
It's like you said, each color represents something, right? There's a reason why they're both wearing the colors that they are, right? And you
yeah,
can also see, just like you said, you pointed out, they look like they stand out in this icon, right?
yeah,
Three people that stand out: Christ, Mother Mary, and Saint John, right? Like
yeah,
everyone else seems like they're blurred to me at least, right? Like they're like it looks like these three are bolded.
Like they're in the
bolted,
background. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
yeah,
And
and
then there's
they are
one.
given halos too, right?
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
giving halo, and of course at the cross, at the foot of the cross, this is your mother.
Yes,
Christ tells
I was
this,
about to say.
right? So it represents like she's our mother too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
She's our mother too. Yeah.
It seems like
I
there's an eye contact there. Like Mother Mary is looking up at
Ah.
Jesus and Jesus is looking down at her.
Yeah.
And you see this like sorrow or this like this distress
Oh.
in both of their eyes, right? Like you can see that kind of.
Yeah, and then on the other side of that, just like you said, St. John looking away, right? He can't see, he can't bear to
Yeah.
see the pain that someone he's been following, right? All his life, disciple of Christ he was,
Yeah.
right? To see your mentor, right? Your like the master of all your knowledge and strength be humiliated like that is huge.
Yeah.
There's one more thing. It might not be on this icon, but there's often icons with the crown of the crown, right?
Mm.
Crown of thorns, right? Sometimes you see Christ with the crown of thorns, right? But sometimes you don't. Why? Because he's wearing the crown of glory, right?
Mm.
We don't highlight his pain. We don't highlight his struggles.
Oh, right.
Rather, we highlight his greatness, his glory.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't see it. Why did I not see the crown of thorn on her? I was like, that's a huge miss.
It's hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
see.
It's unique that like basically
Yeah.
like it's not the
wasn't-
fact that like we're seeing something, but it's the fact that we're not seeing
See
something.
something.
We're not
right?
seeing so. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. I think
Well,
what I'm kind of seeing on this one as well, especially, is that the fact that like males are on one side and females are on the other side, and I just
Yeah.
think back to our own church as well,
Ah,
right?
Yeah.
I'm like, that
right.
is such a really unique
the
connection
icon, right?
as
For
to
the both
why
sides.
there's that
Yeah.
separation right there, right? And then Christ in the
Yeah.
middle, right? Of course, and we see that in our church as well. But then also, like we talked about, like St. John and Mother Mary, right? That relationship, but it's just like the aspect of how they're holding their hands, right? If you look at Mother Mary, right? Mother Mary's like it's almost like a worried mother, right? But
Yeah.
also like grabbing herself while the women around her are also like tightly bundled, right? And so there's like the aspect of like community going around her.
Yeah.
And then you see like St. John, right? He is also doing the same thing, right? Like he has that worry, but also what you see him is his hand is down, right? And showing the, like the look downwards into like Sheol, right? To death itself. And to me, it's not just the fact that we're looking at death, but at the same time, I started looking at feet, right? I think I was looking at another icon group previously, and one of the things that we kind of talked about is the aspect of like, look at people's feet, see the directions that they're facing, see what they're showing, right? And it's very unique because what you see is, right, if the women's, right, it's almost like hidden, right? It's very like very small. But for St. John, I'm seeing like the actual features, the definition of their feet. Same thing with Jesus, right? It's just very unique to kind of see that.
That is true. He's the only one that's feet that's exposed apart from Jesus.
I might be reading, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but could it also be that he went around to spread the gospel, right? Could that be a reason why his foot is shown there as well, right?
That could be a
After
fair
all,
point.
right?
Yeah.
It's not often seen. Like we said earlier, right? You usually see like of the saints, we see the torso and up, right? We see what their hands do. We never see their legs and down because usually it's not important, right? It's usually like, well, what is the point of showing that? But here we see Christ's feet. Why? Because we see the pain. It just highlights how much he suffered. Right? I think it's hard for us as Christians to just be able to understand how much pain he was actually in, right?
Right.
And yet it's like he took it with a grain of salt. He took it like a champ. That's the best I can put it.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I've always wondered there's a similar icon I always see too in our party where the abs of Christ is very, very depicted. To me, I thought it was bread for a second. He's like, it looks like bread. It's like if you were to crop everything off and just look at that, it looks like bread. I'm like, yeah, right. So Christ is the bread of life. The water that's sprouted from Christ is also he's the Eucharist, as we say in the Catholic Church, the Eucharist, right? So yeah, I see that. Maybe it could be wrong, but I always like, yeah.
Or he hits the gym. Yeah, that could also, yeah.
Oh, what you said about the stomach being like the bread, that is pretty much the reason why. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
the bread of life.
I've always wondered that. I was like, okay, is that
Yeah. The way the other side of that I see is like he's the bosom, right? We always say the bosom of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, right? It all starts with Christ, right? So we see that example. And plus the bread, I've never known that. Like I recently learned that, right? Like it's he is the bread of life, right? And that's why you look at you just put like a circle around everything, right? And you just look at stomach, straight bread. It's like what we get every Sunday, right? Like
exactly.
Beautiful example. Yeah.
Bread and wine, body and blood. Wow.
Bread and the water. Yeah. And this is kind of the early depiction of the early church here in this photo.
Mhm.
right? You have the God, the early church
Yeah,
present
right
with
here. It's like
Christ
the
on
congregation, the
congregation,
angels of
yeah,
heaven. That's
angels,
why
yeah,
through his death he
communion of
established
saints,
the
yeah.
communion. Exactly.
Oh, this is so
Beautiful.
beautiful. Look what an icon doing
Yeah,
for
I
us. Like
know.
we have spent so much time on this one particular because it's so mystifying, right? It's the purpose too. It's to mystify. There's no mystery to it, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm hoping our viewers and our listeners, hopefully the listeners are actually going into YouTube and actually watching this with us because yeah, this is very, very amazing in terms of just reflection and understanding, right? Being able to interpret and really be able to see what is the message being shown, what is the imagery and what are the connections are. Does anyone have anything else? Because I think it might be a
No,
good time to
Yeah,
Yeah.
move on to
no,
our third icon as well.
yeah,
It's
Joshua, you
just.
wanna
Oh,
go,
God.
go ahead, go ahead.
Oh no, just
yeah.
what.
So
No,
no, dude, you go.
no. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Just one last thing. It that kind of shows the uniqueness of the icon itself, right? There are
Mhm.
rules that say, hey, these things need to, these things represent something, but at the same time, it also is open to interpretation. It allows us to
Yeah.
kind of understand the beauty of our liturgy, beauty of our faith through that and through that structure. My bad, Josh. Go
Right.
ahead.
That's exactly because it's like let me be honest, like if I'm looking at a picture of a saint, I'm not seeing all this, right? If
Right.
I'm looking at a
right.
picture of a suffering Christ, I'm not seeing all this. Like each and every stroke has some type of meaning. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm,
obviously not stroke, but that's exaggeration. But like each and every like detail, like the sun and moon, right? Like he's the
mm,
ruler of all, right? Even the sun
yes.
and moon bow down before him, right? And
Yeah.
so like these different aspects of it is just beautiful, right? And then that perfectly leads us on to the last icon, right? It's the directly after this crucifixion icon, we see the descent into Hades, right? When he
Hmm.
goes into Sheol. One of the most one of the first big icons that I've seen, right? Like I've done a lot of like looking into because it's so impactful, right? It's like it's something like I've never seen before because we don't know what hell looks like, right? We don't know what Sheol looks like. It's always
Mm,
referenced, it's always
yeah.
said in the Bible, but this is like the first true glimpse into what is going on, right? What is he
Right.
doing on Holy Saturday when he goes down, you know?
He's this is actually one of my favorite ones because this
Awesome.
is so inspiring because Christ came to redeem, right? It's not for him to just be, oh, I'm king and you have to serve me. No, he came to
Yeah.
hug us and take us back to his father's house, right?
Mhm.
For that divine banquet. So he didn't forget the first parents. The first one when he goes down to death, right, to Hades, is grab Adam and Eve, right? At first he grabs Adam first, right? Because he made him first, right?
Yeah.
So but yeah, this is and there's a smile on Adam's face. Eve's face, she's not smiling, right? She's like,
No,
she's
she's
just
not.
right there. She's just not smiling. I don't know why, but it's like, oh, he got his back. Oh God,
She's like,
And like with
oops,
yeah.
that,
sorry, I ate the
Oops.
apple.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, you grabbed him first, not me. Oh, come on.
Oh.
like you said, right? Like think about it. Imagine where does sin all start, right? It started with the first creation, right? The Adam and Eve, right? And
Mhm,
to be able to love the two people that I'm not saying like are they're related to us, right? At the end of the day, like that created the downfall of humanity, right? They broke
right.
the paradise, right? They broke paradise and they created this fallen state of life,
Mhm,
this fallen world, right?
right.
Where once we were told to create to be highly priests, but now we struggle as
Mhm,
we are tempted by the passions, right? So to be able
mm,
to have so much humility, have so much love, to be able to grab the two people that caused your death, right? Like
mm,
sin is what caused Christ to be crucified on the cross, right? And to be able
mm,
to grab the two people that followed all those after them that
mm,
led to him being crucified is just a beautiful picture to me.
I mean, it
mm,
shows the completion of his mission, right? This is it.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we're here. This is why he's here, right? And then it shows that completion. One thing I notice is I see John the Baptist, Saint John the
mm.
Baptist, but who are the two
Mm-hmm.
people next to him?
King
One
David
looks
is one of them.
could have right. It looks like a king, and then there's someone
I'm pretty
above.
sure is King David, and
Okay,
Yeah.
forgive me, it might be I don't know
Saul.
exactly.
I don't know the other king. I can't remember the Solomon. Not Solomon.
Yeah,
It could be someone else.
Well, let me ask you this: do you know why saints are in Sheol, or why would we depict saints down there? Do you guys know, or is there any like context clues they could take or anything like that?
From.
I mean, I would.
There's no
I think.
redeeming blood, right? There's no redeeming blood. So Christ is the
Oh,
redeeming blood. So once that is redeemed, he redeems
Yeah.
everyone.
yeah.
Yep.
So
And
yeah,
that is depicted by the broken doors of Sheol, right? Right underneath.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Awesome.
Well,
That was a great one. Both you guys. A collaborative
Thank you.
effort there.
That was
Oh,
good.
Broken the doors
plus
of
10 points. Let's go. Icon points.
like one thing
Oh.
I'm noticing is what's up, brother? One thing I am noticing is there is a unlocked lock, right? There are nails that are plied out, right? I don't know if it ties back to like whatever you lose on earth. Like I don't know if that's
Oh.
there's a connection there or what that is because I see a bunch of keys or at least one
Okay.
key that
Great.
is
Mm,
right. That's just randomly there. There's nails that are pulled out. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so that was a great one. That was one of the main points I had, right? We see all these keys, we'll see all these locks, right?
Hmm.
What do they really mean? And we see this like dark person, right?
Yeah.
Colorless human, right? So it's to show that there are those who are devoid of life, right? Like before Christ was
mm,
able to go down, before Christ entered Sheol, right? We were all in that state, right? We are all devoid of life because Christ is life,
Mhm.
right? Christ shows us, it puts on that color, right? That's why we see like a colorless human then compared to all this
mm,
color above him, right? And
right.
so it's known as crypts. That's what I have like I wrote as my notes. Crypts is what you name like that colorless person, humanoid form. And then why the keys, right? Why the locks? Because it is the burden of sins, and the key and lock symbolize the imprisonment of souls, right?
Mm,
We are locked up, right?
yeah.
We are imprisoned behind the
Yeah.
bars of Sheol, behind the bars of sin, right? And there's only one person that can save us through that. And that's why we also see a similar icon of Christ pulling them two out of their tombs, right?
Right.
Like one
Mm,
hand on Adam, one
Coffers.
hand on Eve, right? And so just like that, he's breaking the doors. He's opening the doors of Sheol to be
mm,
able to redeem life, just like you said, Case, and just like you said,
mm,
Jarek, right? And then we see these saints, right? Why are there saints? Just like you said, right? Redeeming blood. Think about it. Think about loving Christ so much. All those persecuted in the Old Testament, knowing
Mm.
that the only way that they're saved is through the resurrection of Christ, right? That was
mm,
foretold so many times, like Prophet Isaiah, right? Different prophets told the resurrection, but knowing that until the resurrection,
mm,
you are going to be in Sheol, right? You are going to be in a place without Christ, void of Christ, devoid of life. So to be able to keep that faith within you and to still
mm,
wait this long for Christ shows that longevity, shows the longevity we need in our faith, right? How can
mm,
we say just because we can't see him, we can't believe, right? These
mm,
these prophets had no idea. They were foretold by Christ, right? In visions, in different
mm,
symbols that this is going to happen. They could have easily said no, right? They
mm,
died for it. And that was years and years and years before his actual birth. So that's just a perfect example. Like through his death, he established the kingdom, right? Through his
Mm.
death, he was able to save those who are righteous, even unrighteous in Adam
mm.
and Eve, right? He saved us all because of his love. He broke through those walls and showed his true compassion.
Jeez.
Awesome. There's a couple more. See if you guys can get it. They're like a little minute. So let me know.
I see the scroll in Jesus' hand,
Yes.
right?
So do you know what
Yes.
that
The message of
symbolizes?
to the netherworld, to the
Say
is it
again?
like the is it the gospel of is the gospel to preaching to the people of Hades
Yeah,
of the
it's the
netherworld? Yeah.
just like you said the first time, right? The good news,
Good
Mhm.
right? We
news, right?
always say the good news. We always refer to that to the Gospels, to the Bible itself. It's the good news, right? It's the
Hmm.
good news of salvation through Christ's life. He was able to fulfill the prophets. He was able to fulfill the prophecies before him, right? He
Mm.
rewrote the laws of the Old Testament, right? Because he is the law,
The
right? He is
yeah.
he's divine judgment, and so through that, he's able to show that he's breaking the doors, right? He's able to
Mm,
free those from the abyss of Sheol,
mm.
the darkness, and show them the light through the salvation, through the good news. So that was a perfect one. That was actually one of the ones I was looking for.
Really?
Yeah, there's two more.
I see the like the blue
Yes.
background,
Oh, that was
right?
my next. Yep.
But it's just weird because
Yeah.
it's, or at least weird to me because it's just very like, right, it's not just like central to a body part, right?
Yeah.
That usually we see like the halo around the head, right? But it's like the whole body and the shape of it, right? It's not like conforming to like the shape, right? But it has like a point,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Almost looking like an
Mm.
almond kind of shape.
Or-
Perfect. You hit it on the dot.
Almonds. Oh,
Hit
okay.
it on
There's
the
something.
dot
Yeah.
because
Is
so it's
almond.
actually
Oh,
called
Yeah.
it has a name for it, right? It's called the mandorla, right?
okay.
Mandorla. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right,
It's
but
almond
that's
shapes
how it's spelled
basically,
out.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
almond
okay.
shaped, right? And so that's what it means, right? Almond shaped blue light, right? And so what this is the divine nature of God, right? Through Christ, God is with them in everything because they're one. They're one nature, right? And so, like even in the icon of Jacob wrestling the angel, right? There's no depiction of God. There's no showing. Just like you said earlier, right? We see clouds, we see the burning bush, we've seen different ways that Christ have communicated with us. We've seen the angel that fought Jacob, but we have never seen him, right? That's that mystery. But the way we depict him is through this mandorla, this almond shaped blue light that's always depicted behind Christ, especially after his death, right? Because it's the incomprehensible qualities, right, of Christ, the what we can't see, which is God, the divine nature.
And it could it be the Holy Spirit above him, or
Yeah, it's the
okay,
spirit, it's all three, the Trinity
okay,
working through him, right? And
Yeah.
so that's it's like he's pulling them into that essence, right? Just like we said
right.
with King Abkar, right? It's just being able to see that icon healed him, right? Seeing that icon, seeing the essence of Christ, like the bright light, right? This is the same way, like you can see those little lines. It's the bright light shining through such a blue, like outstanding looking design, you know?
Yeah. Of course, Christ is fully in gold or
Yep.
bright. It looks orange to me.
You guys, all three of you guys hit all three on the
Oh,
dot.
okay, okay. All right.
Wow.
You see David. Yeah, you see David has slight ones of kingship,
Mhm.
right? Royalty. Then Christ is fully royal. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's, yeah.
Amazing, because remember we see like he put on the white robes, right? The robes and the gold garments of righteousness, right?
Mm,
And so he's glorified through the gold garments because
mm,
nothing gets better than gold, right?
yeah,
There's
that's
nothing
true.
above it. So like he's shown that remember on earth he rode on a donkey, right? The most humiliating form of king. That's not a king, right? We don't see a king riding on a donkey. They always ride on big chariot horses, right? Because he knew what is the point of being a king in the earthly world, right? Because he knows he's the king of all mankind. He's the king of humanity. So he rides his righteousness after his death, through his
That's so
resurrection.
beautiful.
And
Yeah.
one thing I don't know if it doesn't exactly fit together, but the mountains in the background, could it be like mountains split open, like like rocks were split at the death of Jesus and things
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't fit exactly,
But
but it looks like it's like flipped over almost, like it's like a mirror image of
It
it,
looks like
of
yeah,
right,
like it used to connect, right? That's what it
yeah,
looks like.
like it could have been like mirrored or something like that, but
Mhm.
I don't know, but that's
And
something
just
that
like
I noticed.
you pointed out, Jarek, in the last one, right? Underneath that it was split open. That's the
oh,
same reference, right?
Right.
It's that split, that skull that we saw, that's where he
mm,
went. He went to seek
mm,
that skull and give that skull life. And that's
mm,
what Adam is. That's what he did by bringing that good news, by going into Sheol, right? And so it's beautiful how it's like in one it's depicted as a skull, in the other he's holding the hand of that
mm,
of the first humans, right? Of
Yeah,
the first
yeah,
creation. So amazing, amazing.
it's awesome.
dude. I love how we said this is going to be a 1 hour podcast. This is it. It was like 1 hour episode. We'll have it all wrapped up. What is it? 2 hours, guys.
Oh, this too. Never mind. I take it back. Well, I enjoyed it. I
Yeah,
Absolutely.
truly enjoyed it.
loved it.
This is awesome.
Absolutely,
Oh,
yeah. I
Um,
think we were able to go through,
yeah.
3 of them.
Like,
Very good.
is there a particular like favorite one that we enjoyed the most? Is there something
Yeah, let me hear it. Let me hear it. What's your guys' favorite out of
mm,
those three?
second one? The second one's like one of the
Yeah.
second and third one were
the
just like
second one is very good. First one, of course, Pantokrator
right,
is fourth, of course,
right.
personal favorite.
But
Second
like
one, because yeah,
just
the
the
symbolism of
explanations. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's amazing how
the
much
I
story
sorry.
they can capture, right? Within one. And like you said, like that's why you like it so much,
Yeah.
right? There's so much more in depth. And continue with yeah.
Yeah, I love my favorite in that whole scene is definitely the skull at the bottom.
Mhm.
It is a like you don't think of that. Of course, Golgotha means that, but you
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, what is it? Okay, but that the blood dripping down in that direction. That's peak. So
Because
good.
you think like how can iconographers come up with these things, right? How can it has to be
Yeah,
the divine essence of Christ working through them,
yeah.
right? That has to be like Father Arseny said, the angels of God working through the unworthy hands. That's why a lot of people after they do an icon, like, they never sign an icon. Why? Because it's
Uh,
written by God. It's the
Right.
icon written without hands. Then there's also another aspect to it where it's it's pure, right? It's not
right.
something that's possible to be made through us, right? Rather, it's something truly given to us by God, and like through that divine nature, we are able to create such symbolism. Because I'm gonna
Mm,
be honest, like If I was just told to put all these symbols, like if I was given a list of symbolisms and say paint this on a canvas, impossible, impossible, right? And so it's beautiful what iconographers at this stage and the forefathers before us was able to hand to us.
Right.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful work. Joshua, thank you again for like really bringing us in.
Like I've never had so much fun talking about icons. Like it's like always like a big thing at church and all that, but you never get that space, right? You never get that time, and to just be able to talk to you three who are so passionate about it is a great blessing. I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I know. I definitely learned a lot, right? Just in this short time as well, and definitely this is like the actual aspect of like gaining the skills of interpreting, right? It's something that I know I'm going to carry on in the future as well. I mean, we have some beautiful, beautiful icons, in our traditions. And so, and of course, as we continue on with our lives, as we go and see different churches and different locations that have these beautiful depictions, right? We'll be able to use like some of the things that we've talked about to really understand and think about it as well. Guys, I wanted to ask if y'all had any final things from this segment. Yeah.
I am very impressed with your knowledge, bro. First of all, God gave you this gift and He has blessed you. I hope that you remember that every day of your life that He's bestowed this gift upon you. I'll be praying for you. We'll all be praying for you as you continue to do this great work of His. If I have more icons in later, I want some interpretation or some, help on, like, you definitely could help me out with it. But I was able to learn so much about icons, what they truly mean. You write them instead of paint them. Oh, there's so many minute details that we have to iron out, and that our forefathers already have ironed out, and that we're just the recipients of all of that, right? And the beauty transcends, right? So us getting to witness that and learn from that, I think is amazing. And now when I go out into other churches, Orthodox churches, Catholic churches, the different styles, I'll always be curious, and I have some sort of basics now to go into them and say, oh, this is what this means or that means. They're like, wait, it actually means a little different in this situation or that situation. So I can learn so much now. So it's opened the doors for me, no pun intended, but open the doors. Open the doors for me to explore more. So I'm very grateful for you, and I think our audience will really love this episode. So, you taking us through the journey of each of these icons as well. So, thank you so much, man. I'll be praying for you. We'll all be praying for you. Okay.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, you guys said everything that I had to say, right? But just I think I say this every episode, right? The traditions and the beauty of our liturgy is just unimaginable. The things, the details that we have is just incredible. And if we give it the time, especially like looking at the icon of the crucifixion, I was thinking back to the Good Friday service about all the prayers, right? Everything, like uh, I think I said like Michael, like where's your anger, right? Like that those things kind of like these things are like going through my head as we go, look at these images, and that's what they're supposed to do, right? So we have such beautiful liturgy, we have such beautiful art. I just as a reminder, we need to take our time to look at these things to learn more about it. And brother, you are doing great stuff with it, right? You've taken your time to write icons, and to whom God gives, He expects a lot more, and I think you're doing really well. And like Kason said, know that we're always praying for you. We always wish you the best. Let us know if there's any way we can help and support you. This is more than just like a PR, like it's just more like a plug, right? Like this is something we need. We need things like this. We need this passion out there. We need this out there. So let us know in like anyways. Actually, speaking of, do you want to shout out? You do have an icons page on Instagram. So would you like to shout that out? And like how could people get in contact with you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, guys. Before I do that, I just want to say thank you so much for giving me like an opportunity for a platform to be able to express my love. And I just want to let everyone know, right? I'm coming into this not as an expert, rather as an amateur. I'm under you guys, right? Like I'm below your knowledge, right? That's how I see myself. That's how we must all see ourselves, right? Because there's always so much to learn, like through your experiences, through what you guys have seen, right? I haven't seen what your eyes have seen, right? And so only through your experiences can I learn, right? And so just as much as you learned, I think I learned 10 times that during this, right? So I want to say thank all three of you guys so much for this opportunity, for this chance to be able to talk with you guys and honestly hone in on my own faith as well. Like, it made me go into learning this, right? It made me go into, maybe I should look at this in more depth, right? Look for more details than what I originally saw, so I can maybe stump one of you guys, right? So just being able to do all that, it's all in faith, all in glory of God. But thank you again. Thank you for your support, and this just me being on here is support, right? So thank you guys so much, and I hope to all the viewers watching, you guys shower these three with your support and your prayers as well to keep you guys going in your ministries. I see this as a ministry, right? I see this as a fellowship, right? And so to continue within this, right, as you guys are your own theologians, right? So to continue with what you guys are doing.
That's a big title. But thank you. You oh man, you give us too much credit, but thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. And thank you guys for being so kind and so understanding of everything. And I guess for the shout out part, if any viewers or anyone wants to be able to receive an icon or maybe request one, I have a lot in to do currently, but I always have a list, right? And I'll get to it eventually with time being. So if you guys are free with time, if you guys are okay with, the time being a little off or waiting a little bit for an icon, I would love to be able to take any request that you guys want. And all I ask is, I don't usually put a price on them. To me, they're priceless. And to me, doing a gift of God to the church is something that I don't like taking monetary value for. So instead, what I do is I say, if you guys can, if there, a donation could be made, right? So a donation to continue my studies, to continue to be able to fund the supplies, right? To be able to fund the activities I'm doing, right? To be able to go to these different events, because they're pretty pricey, right? And so a lot of this is just come out of my pocket, right? And so to be able to maybe, be able to get some support in that view, as well as just support just getting the word out there, right? I love doing what I'm doing, and I'd love to help others, right? Like, I led a iconography event at my church. So if anyone wants to learn more, obviously ask me questions. And I'm not an expert. When you ask me questions, I'm gonna go to someone else with those questions, right? So I'll always help you guys. You guys will also help me. So my page is called jm.icons, right? I bet these three will have it somewhere on the on the podcast, as well as my personal one. If you ever need to reach me on there, it's joshjm.mp3, right? So if you guys ever need to message me on there, do so. Thank you. And if you guys ever need to email me, my iconography account email is jm.icons04@gmail.com. So with any inquiries you guys have, with any questions, with any requests, anything like that, just let me know. I'd love to respond. I'd love to get back to you guys. So once again, thank you guys so much. May God bless all you guys in your continuous ministries. I'm a great fan now. TWT Thomas. I'm with it. I just gotta get myself a mug, and now I'll be set. And
there we go.
So
got you.
Continue. I'll be watching. I'll be supporting as much as I can. Let me know. And yeah, I hope everyone also felt what we all felt within this moment, within this ministerial, time.
Yeah. Thank you, man. And then
man.
After all, we're not so different, huh? So
yeah.
Yeah.
We're all together, guys. We're all together.
Yeah.
Let's pray for our churches as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Really appreciate you.
Yeah.
With love.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of Tea with Thomas. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. Don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to our channel for more conversations. If you'd like to help support us, check out the links in the description.
If you have any questions, comments, or topics you would like for us to talk about, please feel free to put them in the comments below. We would love to hear from you guys.
And for more behind the scenes content and updates, follow us on our Instagram at Tea with Thomas. Until next episode, stay curious, stay blessed, and let's continue to share our Catholic voices and ideas to this world. May the good Lord bless you all. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.